Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Gary H. Swaby, and you're now listening to the Powercast. And today we're going to be recapping Power Book 4, Force Season 3, Episode 2. And the title of the episode is A Seat at the Table. And I am joined today by Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing today, Richard?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? And I am also joined by Miss Dana Abercrombie. How are you today, Dana?
I'm alive. That's all I got. I'm alive.
Cool. Hi, Vic. But, but yeah, so another episode of Force um, gave us a lot to talk about. It was, I guess, the tone of this episode, well, not the tone, the pace of this episode was a bit more slower compared to the premiere, but I guess this is the point now where they're kind of building up to, the major moments of the season. So it is what it is. But there is a lot to unpack here, as usual. So, we will give our recaps of the episode. And I just want to give everyone a reminder to drop your comments, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, also hit the bell. When you press subscribe, also hit the bell so you get notified as well. That's important. But yeah, and definitely take the time to check out some of the other content on the channel. There's a lot of interviews going up with the cast, and you can also check out the Koalition Entertainment as well, and also the Koalition Gaming channel. So definitely check those out. But I won't delay too much. Let's get straight to the takeaways for this week. And this week, Miss Dana Abercrombie is going to go first. So, Dana, when you're ready.
Okay, I am ready. I want to start off talking about there's a couple of things here that was really interesting. Obviously, we know that Claudia, these are things that are in play that she is trying to, obviously get out of prison and escape. But in order for her to do that, she has to play nice right now. And I feel that the the district attorney is having, I'm not sure she's a district attorney, but she is having a moment where her power structure right now, where she's starting to feel herself, right? She's dealing with Vic. We know that Claudia is still into play here. But also at the same time, what I find it to be really interesting is she got served divorce papers. Where it's like, I don't want to be with you no more. And so this is really interesting in terms of we have seen her career focus, we have seen her very driven, but we have not really seen her at home. So for me, it was like, oh, you want a divorce? I forgot you was married. And so for me, I find that to be a bit interesting that while she thinks she can conquer one thing, another thing is being completely abandoned, which we would say our marriage is. And the way how she was served the paperwork, it was cute because I was like, oh, something's happening with the case. And he's like, you got served. And I'm like, served what? Vic on a platter? What's going on? Divorce papers. So it kind of threw me for a loop a little bit. But I like the fact that we're kind of making everything realistic in terms of like this. That sometimes this is how it goes with marriages and career. It's hard to focus everything at once. But then I'm kind of wondering, like, the husband in that aspect, he may feel that she is not always there for him. And I was wondering at the point when she kind of became really, really career ambitious. And I'm wondering if this is kind of a hindrance or this is something that they will follow up on because it's like, oh, you got served divorce papers. I know she may care about, her husband wanting to divorce her, but I'm wondering if her thoughts involving this case is going to take more precedent. And I hope she isn't put at fault for this because sometimes that's what happens in life. Sometimes our career ambitions are way ahead in our priorities than, say, a marriage, which is unfortunate. I'm pretty sure that the husband, obviously, he feels abandoned. So that is unfortunate. But I kind of hope she chooses, that career and not more of like, let's come together and be a family again. Because again, that's great and wonderful, but I want my career ambitious ladies. with that being said, Vic is in trouble yet again. I love how they're finally playing him, and he's just like a puppet at this moment. We open the scene with his head underwater, essentially, being tortured by Diamond and Tommy, because what's going on? Got to be on our sides. And he right now deserves everything that is coming to him just because of his little nasty little weird attitude in season one. So he's had this coming for a while. And while it's easy to be like, oh my God, I feel sorry for him. He just wants to have a normal life. No, no, you wanted to be a bully since season one. So this is now your retribution. You have to answer for that. The Pied Piper is calling, or whatever the phrase goes. I think that's an R. Kelly thing, so that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, the point I'm saying is it's time to pay up. And so I love you being tortured both physically and mentally because you have been a bum at this moment. Another thing, which is interesting, is Mira. I don't know why. It's always so hard for me to say that name. I'm dyslexic, so there's a lot of A's and E's. And I'm like, why was there Maria? Why are you spelling it so differently? Respectfully, but why? Her situationship. We had kind of like the drive-by situation where she comes into play. It was like, oh, I forgot you was a nurse. Look at you losing your little nursing skills. So I was kind of wondering, like, it would be nice if we saw more of that again. And I kind of asked, and we're posting interviews throughout the week, whether or not she kind of misses that career aspect of it. And because for me, I kind of miss her being in the career aspect because, again, I feel that she is someone who's just there without a purpose in this series. Before, when we first met her, she was a nurse. We saw the ER. We saw through her eyes the damage that the gangs were doing to other people in their bodies. We saw the destruction, and like, because she has to treat them. So it could be a case from a rival gang member or a child being caught up in the crossfire. She was that eyes that saw how innocent and other people are involved with it. And to see her, even something real quick was like, get down, boom, boom. Oh, I got a shot. And she's like trying to sew him up. It just kind of made me flash back to, you used to have a purpose. Can we get back to your purpose? What does that mean to you? And whether or not that is going to impact your decision, because it all seems to be like she just genuinely isn't care. Like, I love you, Tommy, and we had this discussion before. To me, there's no chemistry, there's no connect. But I'm wondering if she continues to see the destruction that's being done, will that kind of not impact, but at least have some kind of thought into the life that she is choosing to be involved with? Because to find, it's like, I don't care, I love him anyway, but look at the other people around him. So it's like that's kind of what I want to see more of. I want to see more of that nursing doctory feel for what's going on. Another thing that I'm slightly frustrated. Again, I kind of talked about this before. I really want the brothers to just sit down and have a conversation and talk about things. And I think they will understand. There's a lot of understanding that they can come to. I am just slightly frustrated because everything just seems to be like those misunderstandings, and it's just it's frustrating for me. And I feel that I've had this kind of conversation with myself. I am slightly frustrated with not even Tommy's approach, but it's like, I don't understand why families are being destroyed because of Tommy, because of a literal outsider. And it's like, you let this man come in and you destroy two brothers. You destroy the Flynn family, going back to season one. And it's just that I'm slightly frustrated where it's a literal outsider who just knocks on your door and it's like, I'm here in Chicago now. And you're allowing years and decades of things to just be easily fractured because this man. And you can even look at the whole Myra situation. I forgot what her last name is, but her and her father. And that's also being fractured as well. And if you look at the Black Tommy and D-Mac, you know, D-Mac was already a mess from season 1. He was always like, "Oh, be a gangster," which again, you have to look at the YN situation because the whole thing with the father being gay. But I feel that he's causing more destruction than actually helping things. And I just, I'm slightly frustrated because I'm starting to get more on Jannard's side. It's like, you really let this man come in and destroy everything? And then I'm slightly frustrated with Jannard because it's like, you let this girl come in and further destroy everything? So that is kind of where I'm at this moment. D-Mac to me is the comedic relief that I need for this season because his choices is just like ridiculous. But again, you got to talk to a YN or just even watch the videos of a YN. And you're still like, this is really accurately portrayed. And I love the fact that he is in certain situations. And like I said, happy accidents where he can just fall out of certain situations. He has a literal hit on his head. He's not dead yet. And to see him still being alive, to me, is just comical. And because remember, there's a certain order where it's like he has to be murdered as payback, and they keep but they don't want to like up and kill him, so you keep placed in situations that is like hilarious, and then he thinks like, I'm the king of Chicago, and I could do this, and you're like, no, you're gonna die. But it's like, does he really at this point? So I do like what they're doing with the whole D-Mac thing. It's a comical relief. So I enjoy that very much. And I think that was way more than 3 things. But that's kind of what stuck out to me. My frustrations and my likes.
No, excellent takeaways and observations. And I do agree with you about, with the whole Jannard and Diamond aspect. I do have actually something to say about that in my takeaways as well. But yeah, it's like at this point, it's like they're letting Tommy kind of get in the way of them a little bit, where they could easily just like get back to being, brothers again and kind of take things for themselves. But I'm going to get into what I think about that in a sec. But let's hear from Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. first. And I must say, I like your little subtitle name, Judas Flynn, because that's definitely appropriate. But go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, outstanding takeaways from Dana as always. And I'm going to mention this since you mentioned it, Gary. Yes, Judas Flynn is my name because I am the certified power snitch, because I'm basically talking about all the stuff that happens in Power. So that seems pretty accurate compared to what we saw of Vic and all the stuff that he's been doing to try to stay alive. So yeah, we'll see what happens. So first and foremost, I thought the episode was entertaining. I have some of the same frustrations that Dana has in regards to nobody communicating with, like with Tommy and the brothers, and I'll get into that, but I just want to make a comment about that. My first takeaway is about Tommy, because Tommy was very wild and reckless in this episode. Of course, this is what we love. This is the version of Tommy we love that just does a whole bunch of ridiculous stuff, and you're questioning later as to where is he going with this. Now, as Dana already mentioned at the start of the episode, they had the scene where him and Diamond, they were threatening Vic. And I will say this, when I saw the finale last year, I wondered to myself, I wasn't frustrated because they knew that Vic was the snitch. So I'm expecting them to take care of the problem. But I will admit now, after I saw last week's episode, I do like this back and forth cat and mouse game of now Tommy thinking that he can control Vic. And of course, Vic getting intel, trying, because he does talk to Beth, which is Uncle Polly's wife. He does talk to her in this episode, and she's saying to basically, see who you can play around with the most, who has the most to lose. So far in this episode, obviously, looks like he is going to really try to use Stacy. Of course, Tommy wants him to work with Stacy to get intel and to basically find out what the feds and find out also her weaknesses as well. So I do like how they have utilized that, because I was very frustrated when I saw there is a snitch. Normally on Power, when there's a snitch established, that person gets taken out, pretty quickly. So I like what they're doing with this, even though I didn't like it before. Now, I will say, going into the episode again, Tommy does tell Vic to talk to Claudia to let her know that CBI is now going to be running the Viagra triangle. That's the whole business thing in the clubs. And of course, he does go out there. He does all the things that Tommy asked him to do, which is fine. We'll see where they're going with that. But of course, Tommy has this side plan to sabotage Miguel's supply warehouse. And of course, I think it is important to mention this because Tommy was going to flood the warehouse. And then it was Diamond who said, no, you should go with fire instead. Now, because again, this entire time, Tommy, he really is the one that's running the show. He basically does whatever he wants to do. But the fact that Diamond came in with that information shows you how valuable Diamond is. And I think as the show continues, because, we know that Jannard has been talking to Diamond about, Tommy is very reckless. I think Diamond is going to start to see that more and more. And that will lead to him and Tommy having a lot more issues in their relationship. But I do want to see how that blossoms. But that was an important detail, that Diamond is the one that suggested the fire. And let me make this comment. I heard a very good rumor that Gary and Dana, that scene where, they were burning down the warehouse, I heard Gary and Dana were dancing to that music. Because, listen, I will say this, and Dana, you can do this in your future interview. Find out who decides the music for this show, because I thought that was a pretty, it's a catchy music, but also comical. Because that was, go ahead, Dana.
Just kind of when it comes to the music aspect, because we had many conversations when it comes to the Power Universe and your selections of music, it depends on how it's directed. Sometimes they will direct with music in mind, and so other times it'll just be by per chance. But there is a music person who finds the right tones to match with the music. This is why, for just in general, the Power Universe's shows have really exceptional music to when it comes to finding the mood in that situation. And that is something that I really did love about it.
Oh, yeah. I agree. Yeah. So, go ahead, Gary.
That beat was sick, bro. That's all I got to say. that beat because they were trying to be sneaky. Yeah, I think the music matched up well with that. They gave you the tone, the vibe. So I give them credit for that. I will briefly mention the scene that Dana mentioned with Tommy and Maria, the pizza, the failed shootout. Yeah, it was good to see that she still has a purpose. I still find it hard to believe how somebody is willing to give up all of this stuff to live this dangerous lifestyle with Tommy. Yes, you can make the comment. She has a brother, so she understands a little bit about this stuff. But I thought that was a very, I don't know, that scene was a little, I saw that because, again, like ever since our last conversation, I don't see the chemistry between Tommy and Maria. I think it becomes more apparent now every time I see them share a scene together. But I understand what they were doing. And yeah, good to see that she did serve the purpose of always being on hand. If something happens to Tommy or anyone else, she's there to help. So that was good to see. Of course, Tommy also, when he did this plan about setting up the warehouse, he also decided they were going to go after the shooter. And he did tell Vic, hey, I need you to tell Stacy I'm going after Ortega, which is why they put Ortega in solitary confinement. So, yes, they did that to make sure that he wasn't going to react right away. But then when Tommy and Diamond do the kill, he decides to call this guy and make it clear to him, yes, I am the one who am doing this. I'm taking him out. And this is where I had a bit of an issue because, yes, I understand when you are hurting somebody, you want to be very bold to say, I did this. But for Tommy not to think there's going to be any consequences that come from this is the cartel, by the way. Very interesting he would think this. And then, of course, we saw he then sliced off the guy's head, brought it to the coalition, not our coalition, ladies and gentlemen, but the coalition meeting. He brought it there. And, of course, in doing so, people are questioning, what are you doing? This wasn't a good move. And then we had Gary's favorite character. I believe his name was it Carlos, I believe, or Chavo? Yeah, Chavo.
he is the one that was questioning, why would you do this? Now we're going to become targets. And then, of course, at the end of the episode, he gets taken out. So now I feel like, yes, there are going to be consequences coming for every character, every person a part of the coalition, because there was some that was against what Tommy did. And then, of course, they see that he brought the head there to make a statement and say, listen, we are in control. This is Chicago. But really, Gennard is the one that he's from Chicago. So he is the one that should be speaking on it. That's why I'm glad he had his little moment after that where he gave a speech to everybody. But we'll see what happens. But let me get into my other final two takeaways here. Takeaway number 2. Let's talk about D-Mac. Like Dana said, I very much like that they put this perspective in the show, the younger perspective, the younger generation, as you said, YN, because it shows you, like Dana said, yeah, he is the comic relief with these ambitions of wanting to get back in CBI. They tell him no. Tommy tells him to lay low. Then he decides, well, let me pull off this score to prove my loyalty. And of course, he does so, robbing the people at the Chinatown who were playing the craps game. And then one of the guys had the fentanyl package. He told him, you're making a big mistake. And so obviously, you know, they brought that score. And then, of course, Gennard shows up they tell him what's happening, because again, he's trying to get in good graces with them. And then he's basically Gennard's telling him the same thing. Lay low. We have a territory war now. But again, you know what I'm going to say? Gennard takes that fentanyl. And of course, he doesn't do it in this episode. But ladies and gentlemen, I think it is going to happen, because either way, he's a dead man, you know, because again, the crew, the Chinese crew, the triads, whatever, that crew who is selling this product, they are going to be looking for, obviously, they're going to try to get their product back. The guy said it was worth $20K. They're going to be looking to get whoever is responsible behind that. So I expect them to come after D-Mac. But hey, if they happen to catch Gennard slipping, there it is. He's also going to be a target. So I want to see how they handle that. And then, of course, he does tell Shanti, as he's telling them about he's been talking with Diamond, he does tell her that, oh, yes, and D-Mac got this other thing going on with the fentanyl. The first thing she questions is, remember what we spoke about. It's either the needle or me. And again, I knew they were going to come back to that because they made it a point to talk about that last season. So let's see what happens. But I think Gennard, I'm very curious to see where they're going with that. And of course, the last, we did see that he did spend that money on that bike to impress his want-to-be girlfriend, Genesis. Very interesting. But again, the way they represent the younger generation, I think that is needed for the show, because you understand, like you say, he has ambitions like Tommy has ambitions. But Tommy is telling him, you need to relax. As long as I am in CBI, you need to lay low and let me take care of things. And eventually we'll see what happens over time, pursue something else. And he doesn't want to hear that. So I want to see how they come together, because we already saw in the season trailer, eventually they are going to work together. So I want to see how they get to that point. And so the last thing I will mention, my last takeaways, it is about Gennard. I will say I am enjoying Gennard going back and forth with Diamond, talking about, again, Tommy is an outsider. How is he allowed to come in here and take over everything? I thought there was a very intense conversation between the brothers, but also the fact that, you know, again, Diamond is saying we need to take out D-Mac. And then, of course, Gennard is trying to convince him, no, we need to hold off on that for now because Tommy will blow everything up if we do that. That was a good conversation to have. But again, as Dana alluded to, Gennard is still being manipulated by Shanti. They had the scene where Shanti basically is telling Gennard that he should get close to Diamond, try to manipulate him, because when they have their meeting with Shay, they need to be in the same room so that they're the ones that Shay remembers as well. So very interesting strategy. And it makes me wonder, because again, I do like Chris Lofton. I think he's been doing an excellent job as a character. Makes me wonder, though, what is going to happen with this character towards the end of the show, because he is stuck in a hard place between what's going on with his brother, with Shanti, and now you introduce the whole drug element into this as well. There's a lot going on with this character, and I think as things intensify, it's going to be very interesting to see which path he actually takes. But overall, I thought it was an entertaining episode, moved the story forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing where they go from here.
Oh yeah, excellent takeaways as always. And yeah, I agree. There's definitely going to be some consequences for Tommy and the Koalition. Not us, but them. You know, the Koalition. There's going to be some extreme consequences for Tommy's actions in this episode. You know, bringing a severed head to the meeting and making a statement like that. Like, yeah, there's consequences coming. But yeah, let me get into my takeaways then, and then we can have a further discussion on things. So, so yeah, just going off of what Richard was just saying, Jannard is definitely going to have a moment of weakness this season because the way he was staring at that pack of fentanyl, like, yeah, it's like he misses the high. And then, of course, later on, he talked to Shanti about it, and she was like trying to, you know, she was very aggressive, mind you. She was like, you know, trying to dissuade him from doing it, from going back on the stuff, basically. So that just tells me that it is going to happen because, you know, for them to have that whole conversation, now I know it's going to happen. So Jannard is definitely going to have a moment of weakness at some point. It's just a question of what brings him to that point. Like he's probably going to get super stressed out over something in particular. And then I think that's going to, you know, draw him to the drugs because, you know, when the pressure builds up, like you look for that escape, like you look for something to make you feel better. So I feel like he's going to have some kind of high pressure, stressful situation arise in the next few episodes. And that's what's going to be the trigger, you know, to him getting back on drugs and stuff. Now, if he does start getting high again, that's of course that's gonna affect his judgment on things. And right now, he has a close bond with DMAC, so I'm wondering if that's gonna come into play here, because like maybe he'll use DMAC as a means to get him more drugs or something. Like, you know, maybe DMAC will pull off some more scores and, you know, keep giving it to Jannard. And, you know, maybe Jannard will play into that and, you know, have him doing that, basically saying, like, if you do want to get with CBI, you have to keep doing this. You have to keep supplying me these, you know, drugs or whatever, you know, like, and DMAC, maybe he'll see Jannard's weakness. Maybe he'll find out that Jannard's using, and maybe he'll manipulate that to try and, you know, network his way into the lifestyle further. So, you know, this could go so many ways. You know, I'm not saying that will happen, but that's just something, you know, I feel like is possible just based on what we saw in this episode with, you know, him coming to DMAC. DMAC is the one who gave him the drugs and stuff. So yeah, I'm just thinking out loud at this point, but I am curious to see how far they push it when he does get back on drugs. So there's some other things that could happen, but I have to get through my takeaways before I touch on that. So let me get to the next one. So like we've all been saying so far, you know, Tommy is kind of putting people in a tough situation. Now, look, I love aggressive Tommy. And in this episode, like we saw that aggressive side of Tommy. Like he was very active. He was getting very active. He was doing some gangster stuff in this episode, and I love it because this is the Tommy Egan we know. But you know, he's being so out there with it that he's spooking everyone. He's spooking the Koalition because these are guys who just want to sell their stuff and move on. Like they don't really want that static. They don't want a cartel war or anything like that. They just want to make their money. You know, they want to sell the stuff and make their money. And he's putting everybody in a kind of tough situation by having this war now. And, you know, there was a part at that meeting, you know, where Jannard actually stepped in to kind of calm everyone down. But then when everyone went their way, Jannard did confront Tommy, and Diamond actually backed up Jannard. Now, Tommy should be very scared of that. He should be paying attention to that, because what's Shanti's plan? Shanti's plan is to bypass Tommy and Diamond and get to Shay. She wants to meet Shay, right? So if Diamond and Jannard actually end up fixing their brotherly bond and cutting out Tommy, maybe they could walk away with Shay. You know, maybe Diamond could go along with that plan to cut out Tommy and get Shay for themselves. And and we know that tensions are kind of building with Diamond and Tommy at the moment, especially with Diamond going behind his back to network the whole D-Max situation and get him taken out. So yeah, it's not looking good for Tommy at the moment. Oh, everything good? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so yeah, it's not looking good for Tommy with that, because his actions are putting them in a compromising situation, because and once everybody finds out what happened to is it Chavo, the guy? Chavo? Yeah, once everyone knows what happened to him, they're gonna want answers. They're gonna come back with another meeting, and they're not gonna be very happy, because they're gonna be thinking they might be next based off of what Tommy did, and the thing is, the cartel isn't having any luck with taking out Tommy yet, because we see Tommy can handle himself, and he narrowly escapes getting killed, whenever they come at him. But these other guys, they're not with the static like Tommy is. Some of them are not with the static, so they're vulnerable out there because of Tommy's war. So yeah, the next episode is going to be interesting, just to see what the fallout is from that murder, that drive-by killing at the end of the episode. And yeah, I do think that soon we're going to see the brothers unite and maybe try and cut out Tommy. So that's going to be interesting to watch. And I do want to see where Shanti fits into that, because she does want Diamond out the way too. And she might actually get jealous of that brotherly bond if they start to build that again. So we'll see where she fits into that. But the final takeaway, so I think that Tommy's plan to infiltrate Stacy's mayoral campaign is actually a very smart move, and this could be his one saving grace. This could be his one card that he can play right at the end of the season or something. So definitely a smart move to kind of have Vic be the Judas and have him be the double agent and try and manipulate that situation with Stacy. And Stacy herself is at a very vulnerable state at the moment, because she's going through that divorce. She's going through a very transitional stage in her career. So she might not be as observant of things, because she's got a lot more on her mind now. So I think it's definitely a good time to kind of put pressure on her. And if Tommy actually gets a mayor in his back pocket indirectly like that, and he's able to manipulate her and stuff, that's an ability that, nobody else in the streets has right now. So, that's definitely a trump card he can play later on if he has a mayor in his back pocket. And I'm definitely expecting there to be a steamy sex scene in the next episode with Vic Flynn and Ray Thompson, the assistant or whatever. So definitely look out for that, because that's probably another way for Vic to get in. No pun intended. But yeah, that's another way for Vic to get in on the inside. Let me stop. That was an accident. That was a slip of the tongue. I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, that's another way for Vic to infiltrate the system and stop Dana, stop. It's Dana's fault. Yeah. So Vic is definitely, he's definitely doing some things. So look out for that scene. I'm sure it's going to escalate in the next episode. Go ahead, Rich.
Well, I just want to ask a question, Gary. What happened between you and Ray? Because y'all was in a relationship. You know, you're the ex. So what's up with that?
Yeah, I chose that as my little subtitle name, the ex of Ray Thompson. Yeah, she's a hard worker. I'll say that. You know, so she's definitely all about her work. About Vic, you know, Vic is he's a guy from the streets. She doesn't know that yet. I mean, he's got a tattoo on his neck or something, right? So she should look at that and think, But you know, some people are attracted to that. So there you go. But yeah, that was pretty interesting because like he was there at the office, and I think earlier in the episode, and I think she didn't see him. She I think she like walked right past him or something, and she didn't notice him. So at the bar later on, I think she didn't recognize him from the office, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I went back and watched it. Yeah, she didn't even see him at the office. So yeah, that's yeah. But he definitely got her attention at the bar. So that's where it goes down, in the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, Power likes these kind of storylines because you know it goes back to like the whole Ghost and Angela thing. They like these storylines where you've got like, you know, the criminal and the career woman, you know. So kind of Maria and Tommy, you know, that's another version of it as well. So they kind of like these storylines, these romances where it's very complicated and it blurs the lines. So you know, I'm interested to see where they take it for Vic Flynn, because I think there is some genuine interest from his part as well. Like, I don't think he's just doing it to manipulate the situation, but yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. Maybe they'll end up having more chemistry than Tommy and Maria do. And that's another thing. I do want to agree with Dana that we need to see more. I do feel like Maria was more fleshed out in the previous season. So we need to see a bit more of this because, you know, she is one of Tommy's biggest motivations at the moment, outside of D-Mac and JP, who we haven't really seen JP. So, yeah, I think we do need to see a bit more of Maria. We need to see more from her because it's just seeming like she's a side thing at the moment. So hopefully they'll, you know, give her kind of a bigger role in the story. Because I know she is helping out the guy who got shot. You know, I think she got him some painkillers or something at the end. So she is doing little things here and there, but we need to see more of that if you want us to believe that, you know, they're in love, like they claim, you know. So hopefully we'll see a bit more from Maria moving forward. But yeah, those are my takeaways. Speaking of Tommy and motivations, I do have something I want to ask you guys about that, but I'm going to let Dana go first before we get to that. So go ahead, Dana. What did you want to say?
I just want to say something and refute something quickly. Vic is not a man of the streets. He's a man of a mansion with butlers and people who helped him. So, no. That's a whole different way of operating. When you have someone, since you was a child, wiping your butt, who isn't your parents, you're not a man of the streets. And I think that could be used as a detriment because he doesn't understand how the streets really work. He worked under someone, as opposed to Tommy, who was literally on the streets and had to learn from people on the streets and survive by being on the streets because his mama is a mess. He was on the streets. Vic was in a mansion. So, cater to, explain things to in a caring way where he was supposed to be the lead and prepared for because he's a man, as opposed to Tommy, who had to do it for literal survival. So that's all I want to say. Not a man of streets.
Oh, there you go. She revoked his G card, so Vic is no longer from the streets. Dana has officially revoked his G card. So there you go. There you have it.
He never had the card. You're just handing out cards all willy nilly. This is fraudulent. You are fraudulently giving people cards. I don't appreciate that. The streets don't appreciate that.
All right, my bad, my bad. The streets have spoken. There you go. But yeah, fair enough. He did kind of grow up privileged. Like his dad was like the real don of the situation, and he kind of grew up into it. You can tell that Claudia was the one who really wanted it. She wanted to be the successor to the empire. So yeah, I could see your perspective on that. I can see your perspective. But okay, yeah, so let me get to this, right? Because I will say this, like, this was one of the more laid back episodes that's kind of building up slow, but there was some little tidbits in there to kind of discuss, right? And one of them is the text message that came to Tommy near the end from JP, where he said, Kate got out of hospital and she's headed to New York. Now, do you think this is the build up to when Tommy goes to New York and we get that connection with Ghost, the Ghost Tariq story? Because we never saw that from Tommy's side, when he came to New York and stuff, and Kate was there. She had a conversation with Tariq and stuff. Like, we never saw the connection. So is this what they're setting up? I don't know, but it just kind of, because it came right at the end, and like they don't do things for nothing. I feel like there's something to that text message. So go ahead, Richard. Your mic is open.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm very curious to hear what you both say, as well as the listeners, about that question. I personally think if you go back to the conversation that Beth had, well, first and foremost, I do think that they are leading and going to that direction. But I think if you go back to the conversation that Beth had with Vic in this episode, where she said, find out what you can do to utilize these individuals. Obviously, right now, Vic is working the angle with Stacy and trying to expose her. But I also think he may be responsible as to finding out intel about Tommy and the fact about what happened in New York. And he may feed that intel to somebody, which is why Tommy goes back to go after Tasha. That's the only connection I could think they could make. But again, I would like to see how they get there. But I think the fact that both of these things happen in the same episode, that's not a coincidence. But we have to see where they're going with that. Yeah.
What was you thinking, Dana?
I'm confused because you're giving me timelines. So this season of Force takes place at the exact same time as Ghost Book 2, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So then, is this when, remember if in Ghost Book 2, Tariq went back to Kate's to find Tommy? Is this how so then this is the whole situation. So when she goes back to New York, this is when Tariq is like banging down the door. Where's Tommy? Where's Uncle Tommy? And she's like, my baby, I haven't seen you. So that's what that is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just assuming, like, the timeline is all shaky and confusing at the moment, because we never saw when Tommy went back the first time, because remember, he went back before on Ghost and he went after Tasha. So we never saw we never saw that connection in Force. But
right.
I'm just gonna assume that maybe, because if they're gonna build to legacy, they have to connect it somewhere, right? I would assume.
Okay, so then
yeah, go ahead.
So from my remembrance, which God bless if I even have one, is this is when Tommy goes to try to kill Tasha, and instead they talk, and he's like, "Oh, I have a brother now," and she's like, "What?" So if that's the case, it still doesn't make sense as to why he would then try to go to kill Tasha, given the circumstances of what's happening in Force now? That's what I'm
Yeah,
slightly confused about.
I
So
think
I
they're
don't
just
think
gonna,
they're at the same time.
I think they're just not gonna acknowledge the Tasha thing from before. I think that's done. I think that's already passed already. I think they're just gonna not show us like why he went or whatever. But I think now they're going to go straight to the second time Tommy comes into Ghost, which is at the last season of Ghost, where Tommy goes knock. Tariq goes knocking on Kate's door, looking for Tommy, and they have that conversation.
He,
That was
I
in the
don't,
last season, right?
that
I
was the
think that.
last season, but the reason why Tariq was looking for Tommy was because Tommy was trying to kill Tasha, and he was trying to get to him before he got to her. And that's when he went to his mom's house, and that's when he saw Tommy. I think if you include that within this, it becomes too confusing and convoluted. I think we need to just focus on the story at hand as opposed to trying to remember what happened last season, which for us is like over a year ago. I don't like that. And I don't think that it serves any importance to the story that's being told now. Because at the end of the day, you can have a finale of what are we on? Force, where it's like, all right, I'm off to, I don't know, Ukraine. Let me go stop and see Tariq. And then that's how we have a legacy where Tariq's like, no, instead of going to Ukraine, I love Uzbekistan. Just throwing it out there. I'm just saying when you start to tie in certain things, you write yourself into a hole. Like you have to meet something at certain points, and then that creativity kind of dies within it. So for me personally, I don't want to see any connection as to why Tommy was going back to New York because for Ghost, a book two, that was already explained for me. So I think we're doing too much. Just focus on what's going on at hand with Chicago. It's not like Stacey is being called up from the offices in New York to be like, hey, remember that tape that we had a while ago that has a Tariq on it? Well, this Tariq guy is now associated with Tommy. There's no point. So that's just all I want to say with that. I think if people start thinking too much. So that's kind of the problem. And that's what we've seen at movies where it's like, well, you didn't watch that, then watch that. And it gets confusing.
Yeah, I agree on the point that you both made. It would get to be a lot, way too much to keep track of. I will say this though. I do think it is very possible things get too hot in Chicago for Tommy and he has to leave because of all this stuff that he's doing where you do something and now others are getting impacted. I think they're going somewhere with that. Now, I don't know if that's when he decides to go back to New York, but I'm just saying if they went that route, they have an explanation. They can say, oh, things it got too intense. He needs to lay low for a while and he has to leave. But again, we have to see how they're going to address that. But I do agree. It will be a lot for people to have to go back and forth and try to decipher. So it will be best for them to focus on what's happening in Chicago. But we'll see what happens.
Okay, yeah, I actually agree. It probably is a lot to keep going back and forth, and it might confuse people who didn't watch Ghost or whatever. So I agree with that point. So my other theory is this: maybe while Kate is there in New York, maybe they're not even going to acknowledge what happened before, right? But maybe while Kate is out there in New York, she does connect with Tariq, and maybe later on she comes back to Chicago, and when she comes back to Chicago, she tells Tommy like Tariq is doing well. He's got like a whole crew, a whole network, a whole bunch of people and stuff. Now remember the phone call at the end of Ghost. Tommy seemed to know that Tariq had hitters, like he had people just waiting. So he seemed to know that he had a squad, on the ready. So maybe Kate is that connective tissue where Tommy knows what's going on in New York. Maybe she fills him into some of the things that's going on when she comes back. So maybe it's something like that. And that's what leads to then Tommy making that call later on when he needs help or something.
I have a comment to make on that. I want to hear what Dana has to say first because I have a specific comment on what you said. But go ahead, Dana.
I don't like that theory in general at all because why would this grown 45-year-old man call this 20-something-year-old from the last time that he saw him? He was running his own little tiny operation. I'm gonna need this 21-year-old who to come in with some big guns and tear down the streets of Chicago or whatever it is, and you're on the run for, I don't know, the cops are coming. I'm not going to then put Tariq in that situation where he's focused on his life. Remember, the whole conversation that he had initially was, this is it, in terms of you got to focus on you right now. Remember, we thought, oh, Uncle Tommy's coming. He was like, nah, I am, God bless. You do you. I can't be involved. And so therefore, him calling Tariq just doesn't make any sense to me in my mind as to why he would do that. And it wasn't, I'm trying to, and again, I think Gary mentioned before that they said that was just a throwaway scene. You know how like the Captain America be patient thing, where it's like, oh, let's just have this little hang on, but it doesn't really mean anything. And I genuinely think, the more that I think about it, it doesn't mean anything. And we don't know that he picked up from Uncle Tommy. And obviously it's not Kane because he hates Kane. What happened if it was just like, I don't know, Pookie on the corner saying, hey, I got your bacon, egg, and cheese. Come pick it up. And that's it. Just in general, I think we're giving too much attention to a phone call right now. And when we actually do get to that point and then there is no follow-up to a phone call, we're going to be disappointed. And I think that is kind of what we've been trained so much to focus on something that really ended up not being a thing. And I just don't want this to be like another repeat situation of like, well, how we decipher Marvel movies and TV shows where it's like, oh, but he said Mephisto and the roach on the wall is Mephisto. You know what I mean? So I think we're just dedicating too much energy to a phone call that could have just easily been a throwaway so that people be like, oh, I'm enticed. But that's just it.
Yo, stop spoiling the MCU for me, man.
Yeah, don't do that. Quick comment to make. Dana said exactly what I was going to say. The last time Tommy had a conversation with Tariq was in the midst of a war of his own, and he was saying, you have your own war you need to focus on and find a way. He was very, very adamant about you need to make a decision. You're either all in or all out. It was a very heartfelt speech he had with Tariq. So the idea of him now calling Tariq, and again, Stars is very creative with the throwaway because they mentioned family. When Tariq picked up the phone, we will always be family. That is meant to throw off and make people think, okay, this could be Tommy, but it also could be Diana because again, they had a kid together. The kid, we saw what happened to the kid. So that's a possibility as well. But again, we have to wait and see what happens with that. Because I'll find it hard to believe Tommy would need Tariq for anything. But again, we have to wait and see where they're going with that. But the point I was going to make about with Kate is we know Kate is going to show up again in this show because she was in the trailer for the season and she was telling Tommy to go ahead and get revenge, so on and so forth. So I want to see where they're going with that. Like I said before, something like we already mentioned on this show, something probably happens to JP. And that is what motivates her to say, okay, Tommy, you need to get revenge or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what it is yet, but we'll see where they're going with this. We will definitely get some answers soon. But one thing I do want to mention really quick, Gary, because I don't know if you were going to get to this because you were talking about Tommy and the fact that he got that text message. Also, towards the end of this episode, we saw that Miguel was talking to the hitter to go after Tommy. So I'm also expecting that to happen in the next episode as well. And I'm very curious to see what happens with that because clearly this guy, he said he paid a whole bunch of money to have this get done. We already know it ain't going to get done the way that Miguel wants, and that hitter will get taken out. So I look forward to seeing how that all comes together.
Oh yeah, I did want to touch on that too. So let's jump into that discussion because for me personally, I hope this hitter is actually good. Like, I want to actually see him do some tactical stuff to infiltrate, Tommy's crew and get to him and stuff. Like, I don't want it to be just like another drive-by or, just something simple and Tommy just shoots everyone. Like, I want to see him do some groundwork. I want to see him scoping out the whole situation and coming up with a plan to kind of get at Tommy. I don't want it to just be a whole. Remember the 4 horsemen thing, like in season 1?
Yeah.
They hyped up these guys coming from Ireland, and like Tommy just basically took them out like in one shootout or something. Like, it's like, I don't want it to be like this. Like, please build up to this. Like, I want this to be a build up. I don't want it to be over in one episode, because Miguel is talking like this was like a master plan. Like, so yeah, I want this to really like be I want it to have me on the edge of my seat. I want this guy to actually get close to killing Tommy. So I hope that this is actually something of value that Miguel is doing. But is Dana still with us? I can't tell. I think she froze.
Well, yeah, she'll be back, but yeah, no, yeah. I think I agree that would be good for it to be a for him to be portrayed different from the others that Tommy has taken out. But you already know Tommy is OP in this show, so I'm sure he will take this guy out in record time. Hopefully not, but we have to wait and see where they're going with that. But I find it funny how, and you guys mentioned this on the previous episode, these little scenes between Miguel and Tommy, because they had a scene in this episode, again, very, very comical, where he pulls up on Tommy and it's like, I know you did this. And Tommy's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. You need to get some insurance, though, if you don't want nothing to happen to your warehouse. So I thought that was a hilarious conversation. And then, of course, the guy is telling Miguel, hey, I could do it right now. No, we can't do it. We need to be low key. So they definitely are spending a lot of time building up to this attempt to take out Tommy. So it should be very elaborate in terms of how they do it. But I don't know if they're going to do that. I want to see where they're going with that.
Yeah, like, and this might be the gamer in me, but like when they were blowing up the warehouse, like those 2 guys on the inside, they were straight NPCs. Like they were oblivious to anything happening in the warehouse. Like, they were just walking through the warehouse. They didn't hear nothing. Like they were straight non-playable characters. Like, straight up, those 2 guys. Like they remind me of like some NPCs in GTA or something. Like they didn't notice anything until like they started smelling the gasoline or whatever at the end. But yeah, that was just funny. Like, because Tommy has like the biggest plot armor, like, of like any TV show character. Like, it's like nothing ever, when he's like doing his action, like nothing ever goes wrong. He's got the best plot armor. Like, I want to go through life as Tommy because his plot armor is insane. So
absolutely, it is. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, for real. But it's not a bad thing because it's entertaining. And shouts to Joseph Sikora. He's a great actor. He pulls it off like very well. But yeah. So another question I wanted to ask you two, and I'm sure Dana will return. But what do you think might actually set off Jannard's relapse? Like, do you have any ideas on that? I think Dana's back. Dana, are you with us?
Yep. Sorry about that. I missed a question.
Yeah, so we can go back to what we were just talking about. We were just talking about the what was it again? The what set it off? It was the
Jannard.
Yeah, no, before that, because I think Dana didn't get to chime in on the last thing. Was it the it was the hitman, right?
Yeah, the hitman. Yeah, the hitman. Miguel's hitman. Yeah.
Yeah, Miguel's hitman. So how do you see that? Like, so I guess we were talking about basically Tommy's plot armor and do you think that he's going to be able to dispose of the hitman easily, or do you think this new hitman might actually present a threat to Tommy in any way? And that's to you, Dana, if you're still here. If not, we'll just.
I'm hoping that, I will want him to obviously be much better be much better than previous successors, for the simple fact that it would be more entertaining that way. So I would appreciate kind of that happening, and also I would appreciate that he's a lot smarter, because that is something that Tommy doesn't expect. The thing with Tommy and his ego, I think a lot with everyone in their ego, is they think they're the best at something. And for Tommy to confront someone who is better than him and can outsmart him and is on his behind to kill him could make a much more interesting viewing compared to, someone that he can just easily take out or outmaneuver. And so I would like to see that happening. And remember, he still can't touch Miguel in that situation. So for that to happen, I would need him to just be smarter. And I don't necessarily mean succeed at killing Tommy, but to actually present a dangerous threat for him that he cannot see coming, but he knows that Miguel is responsible for. As I would love for that to happen. And so with the other question, what was the other question?
Okay, yeah. So the next question basically is like, what do you think might actually set off Gennard's relapse? Like, do you have any theories about that? Like, what's going to be the thing that makes him get high again? If you even think he's going to. Oh, we might have lost Dana again. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you. I think there's a bit of an echo. No, I think it sounds okay.
Okay, so sorry about that. Sorry. My situation regarding that is this. Y'all want him to be a crackhead and a drug addict. I don't. I don't even see why that even should be a thing. You can do drugs recreationally, and doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be hooked. This is not, you know what I mean? It's not going to be like, hey, in the next episode, everybody's on fentanyl and crack and cocaine and everything else. There are people who can operate recreationally and may like it and have a little here and there and don't necessarily need it all the time. You guys are talking about fentanyl. Fentanyl can take you out. We've seen the videos where fentanyl takes you out and you just happen to be in that area of where the powder is exposed. I don't need him dropping dead or even him being addicted. So I'm fine with that. When he says that he has it completely under control, sometimes you just have it completely under the control. And I just feel that it becomes, I don't want to say corny, but it just becomes anticlimactic with that. It becomes too much foreshadowing. And that just can become meh. Oh, look, he's staring at the drugs. That means that he really wants to take the drugs. Why not he be staring lovingly and longingly at the drugs? Because he's thinking in his mind a creative way to flip it so they can have some extra cash. Why can't it always be creative? Why does it always have to be crackhead? So, no, the streets do need a crackhead, but it's not going to be him.
The streets need a crackhead. That's funny. How about you, Rich? What do you think will potentially set off the relapse, or do you even think there's going to be a relapse? I think you did allude to it in your takeaways, but what do you think?
Yeah, well, let me first respond to what Dana said. Yes, it is possible for there to be a functional drug users, because Gary and I have listened to various podcasts where people will call into a show and clearly they are on something. So absolutely, yes. The fentanyl, yes, that is possible. But to answer the question, I think the fact that they are teasing it, the fact that they had the conversation between Gennard and Shanti afterwards, make sure, now you said you wouldn't do this, so you're right, you're not going to do this, right? I want to see where they're going with that, because again, obviously I don't want to see the character get high again. We saw last season how down bad he was. The fact that he started with just the sniffing and then he went to the needle, and that needle, that is by far the most dangerous version of it. Even though they made mention in this episode that when Merkovich was taken out, he was also sent another version of fentanyl that was an instant death. Okay, so that's why I said there are different versions of it, of the drug, some more fatal than others. So I would hope that doesn't happen to Gennard. But the fact that they are teasing it, and again, you look at his situation, he has this whole thing about he has pressure to take out D-Mac, even though Diamond agreed in this episode, listen, he got Diamond to relax. We're not going to do it yet. King Kilo wants a body, and if he wants to go after Gennard or Diamond next, well, then that's a problem. And then at the same time, Shanti is the one that's telling telling Gennard, you need to take out your brother. So he has a lot of pressure on him. It makes you curious to see how he's going to get out of this situation. And again, shout out to Gary Lennon. He had another show that he did, I believe it's called Hightown. Vic was on that show, was an addict, and killed himself. So obviously they cannot go in that direction, but the fact that it is there, it's making you wonder whether or not he's going to relapse. So I kind of feel that it can happen. Maybe he can slip up. Maybe he won't go too far with it. But if he does mess with that stuff, then him and Shanti are going to have some serious issues because she doesn't want him doing any of that stuff. As long as he is around and the product is around, he will always be tempted, but he has to go and think above that. So I do want to see what happens. I think now with all the pressure coming to the coalition, the fact that there are people also coming after everyone that's a part of the coalition, this is going to be another test to see how he handles that situation. So I will not rule out the possibility of it happening, but I feel like, yes, it's going to definitely get more intense, I think, for him moving forward.
Can I just say, never start a sentence off with, oh, I know that there are functional addicts, and then say, because Gary and I, because that sounded like it was going to go in a whole different direction.
Oh no! No! Hey, listen, I would never do anything. But yeah, we have watched some material where there are people calling in to give an opinion, and clearly this individual did something to say something so ridiculous in what they are talking about. But continue.
But also, I think that's the foreshadow. Remember how fentanyl can easily take people out, and we saw that happen, right? It's tainted. What if that is actually the key to everything? A little sprinkle here, a little sprinkle there, and that's how we get rid of people. Not only that's how we get rid of people, but that's how we can set them up so that it may look like this crew is trying to take out these people when it's you. So I think that's why the fentanyl was highlighted so much. Not so much because, he's a crackhead, but because, we can probably taint the streets with something and frame it on someone else. Maybe?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Because I do feel like the way they did that with Merkovich, they might try to do that with somebody else. They might try to get at someone else with that, because that was the Marquez cartel, right? Who did that?
Yep.
And they're beefing with Tommy, so this is a tactic they could use again. And it could even be a situation where something is meant for Tommy and somebody else ends up getting it or something. So yeah, that's an interesting thing. So another thing I wanted to raise, because Richard brought up King Kilo, right? So I want to ask, should they be worried about King Kilo right now? Because I'm not sure how much time has passed. I'm not sure if it's been a week yet, but I know he does want D-Mac dead. He gave them a week to get rid of D-Mac, and Shanti's plan was to basically stall him out a bit so they could kind of frame Diamond and Tommy and put the heat on them. But yeah, King Kilo wants what he wants, and they haven't communicated any kind of plan to King Kilo at the moment. So, as far as he's concerned, he's waiting for that news to come through about D-Mac. So, do you think they should be worried? Because if a week goes by and there's no body, King Kilo might set his own plan of action, in motion. So, do you think they should be worried about him? Will we maybe see an update of that in the next episode? Because remember, we haven't seen the trailer yet, the trailer for episode 3 yet, because, yeah. But what do you think about that? Who should I go to first? Go ahead, Dana.
How do I put this? I feel that they're highlighting the fact that D-Mac is, like I could have said, the happy accident where he can just kind of escape things and just not know it. That should kind of be a little bit of a continuing theme for a little bit, because I'm just slightly entertained by his sheer stupidity and brazenness of everything. But I do think that King Kilo, sorry, wrong Vaughn, can put out someone out there. And it's who to say that he just accidentally dodges that. So that would be great. But then also I'm kind of wondering, they've made it such an importance that it's out there. It could be one of those situations where D-Mac could end up getting the guy who's trying to hit him. So say if he does put out a hitter, again, happy accident, he ends up shooting that guy. So it just doesn't work. But for the moment, I kind of like D-Mac. And I never thought I would say this. I want him to be alive a little bit more. He's doing things so wild and reckless that who's to even say he is going to die? If he was to, there's a hit out on him, that he would die by that hit. It could be something completely stupid that takes him out. And we do know that there is a funeral coming up. From the clip of it, I think wasn't he in the scene, so I don't think it's him. I could be wrong. But there is a funeral coming up, and who's to say, for example, we've seen this before, someone else gets killed, and they frame it to look like D-Mac. And see if you have a burnt body, oh no, it's D-Mac. It gets back to King Kilo. He's dead, but D-Mac is sitting here on the couch eating Cheetos and Fritos, talking to the girl on the phone. So that's another thing.
That is a very interesting opinion, and I think that is a very good idea that they should have thought about. Wait, we can always get someone to look like D-Mac and make it look like we took him out. I don't know if they're going to do that, but this is what I will say. Genesis needs to be very careful if she's going to be around D-Mac now. You talk about innocence that could get taken out. That is another one that can get taken out, because D-Mac is pursuing her to be in a relationship, and he got all this mess going on now with King Kilo, all the other hitters. So I want to see where they're going with that. But I will say this. I think that King Kilo, if he sees that Jannard and Diamond are not moving on this, then I would think that he would try to get someone else to do the job and also try to take them out as well, because they didn't follow through on their promise to get rid of the problem with D-Mac. So I do want to see what happens in the next episode. And I will also add that because of what's happening with Tommy and the fallout with the Koalition, because I do expect there to be a fallout in the next episode. Now that they see that Chavo got taken out, they're all going to be worried and concerned. So this is the perfect setup for now. Well, now they got to also be concerned about the D-Mac situation as far as Jannard, Tommy, Diamond, because Tommy still does not know that Diamond is the one that is basically telling Jannard we need to get rid of D-Mac. So I kind of feel like that revelation probably needs to happen like very soon, like in the next episode soon. But we'll see what happens. And I do want to see which path they go in. But yeah, King Kilo, I don't think that he's I know the actor that's playing King Kilo. This guy is actually in jail now, for something else, not related to what's going on with this situation. But I kind of feel like right now, I think he's just talking behind the jail cell. I don't know who he has who his hitters are that he can put on this. So I would need to see who these other people are that he decides to get involved in this if he goes that route. But I don't take this guy serious whatsoever. Like you said, Gary, we don't know if it's been a week yet, but I would expect that he would want some type of update in the next episode, I would think, because they didn't really address it in this episode as far as him reaching out to them again. So we have to wait and see where they go from here. Go ahead, Dana.
Genesis to me is such a non-factor. Like, you can tell he's not even interested. He's like, I really am not interested in you. He's like, look at this money, look at my change. He's like, okay, and what book did you read? Can you spell? So I don't think there's any danger to her, because she's just so like, I don't care, which is why I love the character. But even if she was to, randomly, oh, they're going to take her out, I don't care. And I'm sure like D Mac would be like, oh, that's sad. Okay, what's up next? I want to be in the gang. I'm a CPI. Like, there's no kind of connection or even like relationship there. So I don't see her being at play, aside from like something to laugh at, in terms of, her laughing at D-Mac the whole time.
Yeah, that's funny, because she doesn't seem phased at all by him. So that's hilarious. But shoot, I had a thought. What was I gonna ask? Oh yeah, so okay, before we get to final thoughts here, so we do know that there is that funeral scene in the trailer. Do we have any predictions of who we think that might be? Because I'm not sure if we discussed this before. Now, just real quick, we haven't seen JP yet, but I mean, we're approaching episode 3. I feel like we need to see him soon, and I do feel like he is probably going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time at some point this season. So that's that's my prediction. What about you, Rich? I'm sorry if you were going to say the same thing, but
oh no, my prediction has been slightly updated. Yeah, I do think JP is the one that is going to get taken out, but I also think that it might actually be the hitter that's going after Tommy that takes out JP instead. Like I said before, it may be the Martez cartel because they're trying to take out Tommy, but it could be the hitter now, because like you both said, they should really make this hitter more interesting. You don't want to just have Tommy take him out just like that. They should have make this a little bit more elaborate in terms of what he is doing. And again, like you said, Gary, we haven't seen JP. I think that would be the motivation that would make D-Mac and Tommy want to get revenge. So it makes sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me. And also, like I said, Kate was also in the trailer encouraging Tommy to get revenge. We know that, listen, no disrespect, we know that Kate loved JP more than Tommy. Okay. So if something happens to him, then I would feel like that would be cause for her to come back and motivate and say, yeah, Tommy, go ahead and get revenge. It makes perfect sense to me. But again, let's see where they're going with this. But that's my prediction. JP is definitely in that casket, unfortunately. And I can't think of anyone else it would be, because D-Mac was at the funeral, Tommy was there. So it makes sense to me, unless it's another character. I don't know who else it could be, but that's just my opinion. Go ahead, Dana.
I adore hearing the guesses of who it can be. This is my highlight right moment, because I can't say anything. But I like the fact that it's JP. I mean, like, JP really doesn't respectfully serve a purpose right now in this season. They made a big stance of being like, Kate's in New York, so it's not Kate. And so that would be an explanation as to why D-Mac is in the pew, because that would be his daddy at the end of the day. No matter how many arguments they do get into, that is his father. So it could easily be him. Is he in the pew? I can't remember. That was so long ago. But he's not in the pew. I don't think we saw him in the pew. There you go then. It's D Money Mac, because the hitters couldn't take him out. But what if he got stung by a bee and that takes him out? He's allergic. No, I think the only logical answer for that to be is JP, or maybe it's somebody else. Okay. Here's the thing. I want people to think. This is a world where anybody can go at any time, right? And we have seen people been executed indoors, outdoors, whatever the doors are. So it could be someone who wouldn't make any sense for it to be, but it could be them. Or it could be a complete nobody. We have seen before where they'll edit a scene in to make it look like really great importance, right? Because it's like, oh my God, something happened. But it actually could be like the funeral of a boy down the street that they just wanted to pay respects to. And this scene is to show kind of how this industry, this lifestyle is a danger to anyone, even those who are not involved. Right? But at the same time, this is a final season. And for me, I personally would want it to be someone of importance, right? Because this is the finale of this iteration. Yeah, we know what happens with Legacy. So it could just be that. But here's another crazy thing to say. What happens if it could be Tommy? Not saying that it is, and not saying that it in general, just in terms of like funerals, because I've always been thinking legacy means like usually the next generation, what you leave behind, right? So what happens if who we thought we were supposed to be following kind of does make their fate? And it's not no longer about them, but it's about the legacy that they leave behind. But if I was to just throw out a name, I do feel like, JP, let him go in there. Obviously, D Money Mac would be taking this a lot more seriously. Tommy would mourn the brother that he never really knew, right? And it would bring Kate back, obviously, because I don't think she would miss the funeral of her son unless, it's some kind of lockdown situation of rehab. But if you look at that way, what happens if she relapses again? And this is how she meets her fate. Because remember, the whole situation with the grandson was kind of the reason why she relapsed, right? She was clean and then she relapsed because what happened with the grandson. Now what happens now if it's her son's son? Is this two birds in one stone where we get rid of Kate and we get rid of JP? And now D-Mac is essentially on his own, right? And it's now Tommy, and this bleeds into what I think Richard or Gary was saying in the last episode, where it's like, oh, and then D-Mac comes on the road with Tariq, and now it's Tariq teaching D-Mac, right? And that's how we have the legacy aspect of it. So it could be that, or you could just change the name to Power Generations. Oh, that's so much better. But anyway, the point is, I'm simply saying, is I do feel that it can be anyone, and all of those things are plausible. But like, if you have to like gun to your head, who it could be, it could easily just be JP, or maybe someone who we just didn't think that it could be, but it is, because I'm going back to The Wire, where it's like characters that we thought we was gonna follow to the very end, we didn't. So, yay.
I just want to make a comment. That's excellent points. I will be genuinely surprised if Kate is taken out. I feel like for OG Power fans, that'll probably be on the same level of when we saw Sax get taken out in Ghosts, because that is a character you've seen from the start of the show, really. So that would be, and it definitely would leave an impact on Tommy as well as JP. But I do think it's JP. But one last comment that I do want to make. Another character that needs to watch their back is Marshall. That is D-Mac's best friend, who is played by the same actor that plays Bakari in The Chi. Another character, by the way, that a lot of people thought was going to get taken out in The Chi. So, very interesting casting. He does a good job on both shows, but I'm very curious to see what happens. But yeah, that's another character that should be careful too, because again, he has D-Mac staying at his place. He obviously was seen when D-Mac pulled that heist off. He was there. and just needs to be careful. That's all I have to say. But again, I don't know anything. I'm just saying there are going to be people that are going to be, they're going to be a part of the consequences that come from the actions of what other characters have done, such as D-Mac. So let's see what happens. Go ahead.
And remember, we're also forgetting Jannard and Diamond is still there. Vic is still there. Stacy's still there. What's the girl? The blonde girl. Claudia's still there.
Yeah, and her girlfriend. Yep.
Her girlfriend is there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more than just like other, like, you know, there's more people than that. That I feel that even if it was to say Vic, oh my gosh, what then happens with Stacy's investigation? I know Tommy will be elated. Claudia will be elated. What happens to Stacy within that? What happens if it's Claudia? Claudia's still in prison. Do you think that one shanking is going to be like, oh, we can't touch her anymore? Right? Or you have the girlfriend who kept saying her heart's really not in it. She's not like, I'm going to ride or die and do this for you. Right? She's kind of like, can we just leave? I want to go home. Right? So it could easily be those characters as well. Just because someone was given a reprieve, or because, oh, look at Vic and his situation, that don't mean anything. People, it doesn't even mean a gun. It could be like, oh, I'm walking down the street. Oh no, here comes the car and it hits. So I just want people to think about that.
Yeah, I think I need to run this back because Dana's been talking in code. I think. So I need to run this back and really listen to what she's saying. So, yeah, go ahead, Rich.
No, I said good, excellent thoughts overall. The last point I will mention, because Dana, when she mentioned the word Stacy, I got triggered. That is a character that I foresee getting taken out. And I think that her soon-to-be ex-husband, Bobby, will now be the one going after Tommy. I see that. Don't ask me why I think that's going to happen. I hope I'm not 100% accurate about this. I just feel like that's coming, because I could have swore we got a scene in that trailer where there was a body that was being investigated. Somebody got taken out, and I thought that Bobby was looking at it and was like overcome with emotion. So I could see Stacy being taken out, and then Bobby will now like, okay, now I need to try to get some revenge, because this entire time, she's focused on becoming mayor, but she also wants to take out Tommy Egan. So I could see that transitioning over to him. He would maybe better understand the ambitions that she has in terms of this stuff, but I just foresee that coming. I don't know anything, just my guess though. And I could be 100% wrong, but this is what we do this show for, to talk about our thoughts and theories. So see what happens. Go ahead, Dana.
Wasn't it Vic who took out his daddy? Right?
Yeah.
Or was it Claudia? It was Vic who took out his daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say? And we've seen Vic is like under an immense amount of pressure, right? And what tends to happen when you under immense amount of pressure, you start doing things recklessly. And right now, he feels that he is being, the double mole, and it's too much for him. Who's to say that Vic is like, doesn't follow Stacy home or whatever it is, and just starts being like killing people? Why are we bringing in her husband, who's now wants to be the ex-husband? What purpose does that serve? It's not like, oh, she's not married, she's getting a divorce, so we can't vote for someone in mayor who's going to be a divorcee. It's not like it's, the 1950s. We're like, oh, scandal. No one really cares about that. I mean, kind of look at how we're structuring the American government right now. Oh, a divorce. I think that, but to me, it just seems like, why are you focused on bringing this man in again? Right? You have a funeral scene. She's under pressure. She's desperate. He's desperate. Everybody's losing their minds. And it wasn't like, hey, Dad, I'm a gun to the head while you're sleeping, and then boom, boom. It was a big shootout thing, right? And that was his father. You think he would care about Stacy? So, like,
And oh no, respectfully to Stacy, I don't care that you're like running for mayor. Like, great. Okay, you're now mayor. And then what? Did you get Tommy at the end? I don't think so. And then, if you did get Tommy at the end, okay. And then what? We gonna make you mayor because you got Tommy? Yay! But if we take you out to show the desperation that Vic is in, that would make it smarter for me. And then, as you said before, the husband is not like, I'm a random financier lawyer on the streets. He's a part of the whole police situation, from my understanding. I'm going to avenge my wife's death. That kind of thing. So it could be her, or it could not be her. Or again, it could be any of the other ones. It could be Vic. You said that Vic died, right? In Hightown? Suicide?
Yeah.
Vic is in a situation where, to me, it feels like kill or be killed, or kill yourself. Who's to say that he doesn't kill himself because the pressure is too much? You got Tommy trying to kill him. You got Stacy barking down his throat. You got this little white girl that he's talking to at the bar. We don't know what she's involved with. And what happens if she finds out and that's her people's? So to me, sometimes it could just be like, I can't take this anymore. Goodbye, world. Whee! It could be that way as well. I don't know.
Oh yeah. It could. You've given me some things to think about because it could go many ways. Yeah,
Well,
for sure. But yeah, go ahead.
The last point I will mention, there's a lot to think about. I will say this though: if Stacy is the one that's getting a funeral, I don't think you will see Tommy and the rest of them at that funeral because they know people in that task force will be looking for them. So, but I do think the character can still get taken out. I mean, we just have to wait to see how this is all going to play out.
Yeah. If she gets taken out, that wasn't the funeral scene we saw. That definitely wasn't hers. But she could still, get taken out. So we'll have to see. But let's get to final thoughts now, and then we'll head out of here. So, Richard, any final thoughts on this episode? Anything we didn't cover that you wanted to bring up? Let us know.
Actually, no. I do think we covered everything. You did mention about the Kate stuff. No, overall entertaining episode. Like you said, slowly building up the story. It's a build up, so hopefully this is leading to somewhere exciting. Like I said, episode 3 should be very interesting because I'm expecting us to get an update on what King Kilo thinks about what's going on with D-Mac and for this hitter to start to put their plan together to take out Tommy. So it should be a very exciting episode for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. My final thoughts is, it was a cool episode, more of a laid back episode, a slow burner. But I do think so far the writing has been way better than the previous 2 seasons because the writing in the previous 2 seasons kind of frustrated me a little bit. But so far, this is, it's been making sense and it seems like it's building up logically. So I can appreciate that. So shouts to Stars and Gary Lennon and, Joseph Sikora and everyone involved in this season because they're doing a great job so far. But those are my final thoughts. So Dana, give us your final thoughts.
I thought it was a good episode so far. We're only the second episode in. So I think it did a great job with pacing. Things did still happen. I kind of like the little hilarity of it. D-Mac, again, is just bringing a comic relief in the situation. And we are seeing a bit of the old Tommy when it came to cutting off the head. That is something New York Tommy will do. And I'm happy that we're bringing some of that back in. I still don't like Mira's existence in this. And I'm kind of wondering where we go from here when it comes to that. I like the hilarity of, Miguel can't touch anyone. So that again is like going to be able to feel like a cat and mouse game. So that should be pretty fun also. So I think that it did a really great job. Not every episode needs to be high octane. Oh my God, that happened. And then this happened. Sometimes we just got to establish certain things so that it does happen. We have the establishment with Vic and the girl. Where does that lead to? Stacy getting the papers. Oh, what does that lead to? Does that mean that he's going to have an ultimatum where it's like me or your career? And who's to say that she doesn't be like, screw you, I love my career. Maybe it could be like, I love you more. And that's how she bows out in certain situations. So I do like the fact that, and then who's to say that we end up going home with them in terms of learning more about her home life and where that leads to. So I look forward to what the next episode is. And I think that this did a really good job at further establishing things.
Absolutely. I agree there. But yeah, so that is going to be it for this episode. I look forward to the comments. Shouts to Tracy Lee and everyone, who consistently comments. I will be, looking forward to the comments and hopefully reading out some of them soon. We didn't get to this time, but maybe next time. But yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week to cover episode 3 in Power book 4 for season 3. So look out for us next week. And until then, take care of yourselves. Make sure you check out Dana's interviews as well, which are also dropping. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, also we do have the episodes with the cast that will be dropping very soon. Well, they're dropped now. You have the one with Claudia. So by the time you guys see this, that Monday we will be dropping another interview with a cast member. So that should be a lot of fun. And then also on the entertainment side, we are covering It Welcome to Derry. So if you're interested in Pennywise and the gang over there, we will be discussing about it every week. We'll break down each episode and see whether or not we liked it or not. And by we, it's me and another person. But the point is, we have the episodes. And we also have other interviews just in general, entertainment-wise. So, yay.
The hardest working press person in New York right there. So go check her out on the Koalition Entertainment. But yeah, peace out, everyone, and we'll see you soon.